of both public and private investments, and this economic recovery will facilitate the dignified, lasting return of refugees and will help to transform humanitarian assistance into development. And we hope that the necessary agreement will be arrived at regarding the institutionalized presence of the Special Envoy in Syria. Madam President, Lebanon and Syria are having their stability threatened by the regional escalation. And at the Security Council, we are seeking to support efforts towards de-escalation, and we very much hope to insulate Syria from any attempts at de-escalation, and we also are keen to support the unity and territorial integrity of the country. Thank you.
Representative of France for the statement. I now give the floor to the representative of Greece.
Thank you, Madam President. I wish to thank the Deputy Special Envoy, Mr. Cordone, and reiterate once again our strong support for the prompt establishment of the Office of the Special Envoy in Damascus. I would also like to thank the USG, Mr. Fletcher, and the CAC's SRSG, Mrs. Fraser, for their briefings. The recent visits to Syria reaffirm the UN's role as a reliable and trusted partner of the Syrian government. We thank them for their work, and we strongly encourage Syria to benefit from the UN's expertise. Madam President, amid increased regional volatility, the Syrian leadership has shown restraint. Following Hezbollah's triggering of another round of escalation between Israel and Lebanon, Syria has maintained a restrained posture, which we commend, given that Syria's stability and prosperity are essential for the stability of the broader region. Achieving such stability and prosperity requires, as we have stressed before, an inclusive, Syrian-led and Syrian-owned political process. All Syrians, including women, and regardless of ethnicity or religion, must be ensured protection and meaningful participation in political affairs, governance, administration, and the security sector. Without inclusivity and balanced representation, peace will remain fragile and incomplete, and the prospect for recovery could be undermined. We welcome steps toward inclusivity, including the recognition of Kurdish identity. Full implementation of the agreement between Damascus and the SDF must now follow. All communities, including the Kurds, should see their rights protected in the country's legal system. However, substantial work is still pending as the latest incidents in the predominantly Greek Orthodox city of Al-Suqailabiya showed. We are particularly concerned since this is the second case of violence against the Greek Orthodox community following last year's terrorist attacks on the Greek Orthodox Church of Mar Elias. Credible transitional justice and accountability must lie at the heart of all efforts towards inclusivity. Relevant international mechanisms such as the IIIM and the Independent Institution on Missing Persons can offer valuable expertise in this regard. We strongly encourage the Syrian government to fully engage with this mechanism and accept the IIIM establishment in Damascus. Work on transitional justice needs to be undertaken in collaboration with the UN and in accordance with international standards. At the same time, a sustainable path toward peace requires counter-terrorism efforts coupled with reforms in the security sector. Hence, the security of the remaining ISIS detention facilities must be ensured. The situation on the ground must be carefully monitored amid reports of escapes and liberation of detainees. We would appreciate an official update by the Syrian government in this regard. Mr. President, a future of long-term stability in Syria also requires a solution to the humanitarian crisis. As Tom Fletcher underlined, the humanitarian situation remains severe, with almost 16 million people in urgent need of assistance. Refugees arriving from Lebanon have added further pressure, and basic services continue to erode. The recent launch of the 2026 Humanitarian Needs and Response Plan in Damascus underscores the scale of needs and the urgency of recovery. We welcome this initiative and call on the international community to support it. Greece has already contributed to various humanitarian projects for Syria through international organizations and partners. We are ready to stand by the Syrian people and actively participate in the recovery of the country, also by re-establishing our trade and investment relations and providing capacity building. In addition, as highlighted by SRSG Vanessa Fraser, the protection of children is of critical importance. The situation in Al-Hol and Al-Roj camps remains deeply concerning. Children there face poor conditions, limited education, and serious risks of radicalization. Unexploded ordnance continues to threaten lives, underscoring the importance of demining efforts. We are looking into providing support to Syria in this regard. Last but not least, Syria's reintegration into the international community depends on respect of international law and fostering peaceful relations with regional countries and international partners. At the same time, Syria's sovereignty, unity and territorial integrity must be fully respected. The EU, a critical partner of the Syrian government, plans to launch the high-level political dialogue with the Syrian authorities on May 11th. We welcome this initiative and look forward to strengthening our relations with Syria within the EU framework, and we are ready to contribute to this end. In conclusion, Mr. President, Greece remains committed to the vision of a prosperous Syria worthy of the aspiration of the Syrian people, where the rule of law and human rights are respected and where all feel safe and equal. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Greece for the statement. I give the floor to the representative of Panama.
Gracias, señor.
Thank you, Mr. President. We would like to thank briefers for their statements. The Deputy Special Envoy of the Secretary General for Syria, Mr. Claudio Cordon, and the Undersecretary General for Humanitarian Affairs, Tom Fletcher, and Ms. Vanessa Fraser, Special Representative of the Secretary General for Children and Armed Conflict. We would also like to extend a cordial welcome to representatives of the Syrian Arab Republic, Egypt, and Turkey, who honor us with their participation. In this stage of the political transition process, characterized by the efforts of the Syrian people, the authorities, and the international community, Panama would like to underline the importance of ensuring that Syria does not become enmeshed in regional instability and the effects of conflict dynamics that are affecting its immediate vicinity. At the same time, Syria should be in charge of its own destiny and should be sovereign in its entire territory. Specifically, we note that the evolution of the situation in neighboring Lebanon, as well as other parts of the region, could have direct implications for Syrian stability. Therefore, we reiterate the need to avoid any kind of action or escalation that could have a negative impact on Syria. In this challenging regional context, Panama would like to highlight the restraint shown by the Syrian authorities and the fact that they have respected the disengagement of forces agreement in the Golan from 1974 as a significant contribution to stability on the ground and reducing tensions at the regional level. In this sense, we call upon all parties involved to fully respect the aforementioned agreement, to abstain from any action that could compromise it, and to contribute constructively to its sustained implementation. Panama welcomes strengthening dialogue and cooperation between the Syrian authorities and the United Nations when it comes to protecting childhood during the recent visit of Undersecretary General Vanessa Fraser. We take note of exchanges in order to consolidate more robust protection frameworks to better safeguard the rights of children and specifically those efforts geared toward preventing recruitment. We continue to closely follow current efforts to transfer to Damascus the office of the Special Envoy, whose work is critical so that the support from the United Nations and specifically this Council contributes more directly and effectively to the institutional consolidation and reconstruction process. Likewise, we would like to underscore the need to steadily but firmly move towards consolidating transitional justice mechanisms that allow for social trust building. Lasting stability requires legitimate institutions and credible accountability processes. Panama would also like to highlight the importance of keeping the focus on the humanitarian situation. The Undersecretary General's recent visit to Syria, Mr. Tom Fletcher, proved the need to transition to a greater integration between recovery and humanitarian responses. The launch of the Humanitarian Needs and Response Plan 2026 and the Statement of Recovery Priorities for Syria are important efforts that deserve support and financing from the international community. We reiterate that sustained and unhindered access to humanitarian assistance continues to be crucial, specifically in the areas most affected by prolonged displacement and cumulative structural damages. Mr. President, Panama reiterates its call to all involved parties in the Syrian conflict to act with a full sense of responsibility and to prioritize collective well-being and protecting human life above any other consideration. We reiterate the importance of continuing to engage in a patient dialogue to build peace, along with investments in development and recovery to promote the collective well-being of Syrian society as a whole. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Panama for the statement. I give the floor to the representative of United Kingdom.
Thank you, President. I would like to thank our briefers, Deputy Special Envoy Cordoni, USG Fletcher, and SOSG Frazier, all of whom have visited Syria recently. And this breadth of UN engagement on Syria underlines the importance of the timely movement of the Office of the UN Special Envoy for Syria to Damascus as a step towards further improved UN and international support to Syria. I'll make 3 points. First, the United Kingdom was pleased to host Syrian President al-Shura during his visit to London on the 31st of March. This was a significant moment in deepening the relationship between our two countries, which will enable us to make further progress on issues that are pivotal to Syria's stability, including securing the enduring defeat of Daesh and supporting Syria's economic recovery. In this spirit, I also welcome the newly established Breath of Freedom Task Force that will work on the destruction of chemical weapons stockpiles in Syria. The United Kingdom is proud to be a member of the task force and to have announced over $9.5 million of additional funding in direct support of Syrian-led destruction activity during President al-Shura's visit. Second, efforts to integrate northeast Syria into the Syrian state are welcome. This includes the appointment of Sipan Hamo to Deputy Minister of Defence and recent prisoner exchanges. We look forward to continued momentum towards the full integration of military and civil structures, which is essential to help strengthen Syria's institutions and support social cohesion. The completion of all outstanding elections and the formal convening of Syria's People's Assembly will be a crucial next step for the political transition. Finally, we've seen recent positive examples of strengthened collaboration to address ongoing humanitarian needs and move towards longer-term recovery. This includes the joint visit of USG Fletcher and UNDP Administrator de Croo to Syria, the launch of the UN Humanitarian Response Plan, as well as the Syrian government's statement of recovery priorities for international cooperation. The United Kingdom will continue to help meet these needs, including for those affected by recent flooding. Maintaining safe and unimpeded humanitarian access across all of Syria remains essential to ensure the UN and partners can deliver vital assistance. Colleagues, it's welcome that Syria has remained relatively unaffected by the ongoing regional conflict. Still, we urge the international community to remain focused on supporting progress towards Syria's economic recovery and long-term stability. I thank you.
I thank the representative of United Kingdom, and I give the floor to the representative of China.
Thank you, President. I thank Deputy Special Envoy Claudia Cordana, USG Tom Fletcher, and Special Representative Vanessa Fraser for their briefings. I also welcome the presence of the representatives of Syria, Egypt, and Turkey. Tensions in the Middle East persist with ever-spreading spillover effects, adding new complexities to the existing fragilities in Syria. Much is at stake now, and the pendulum could swing to either war or peace. China calls on the relevant parties to seize the window of peace, exercise maximum restraint, demonstrate utmost sincerity, and continue to settle disputes through political and diplomatic means, with a view to achieving comprehensive and lasting ceasefire and cessation of fighting. It is imperative that the international community act in concert to keep the flames of war in the Middle East from flaring up or expanding further and from impacting Syria's security and stability. I'll make 3 points. First, we must jointly support an inclusive political transition. China notes that the Syrian transitional government has taken pragmatic steps towards implementing the comprehensive integration agreement for the northeast, achieving positive progress. However, tribal tensions in the Suida region remain acute amidst a persistently tense security environment. Reports of new sectarian conflicts in Hama Governorate are particularly worrying. Political dialogue should be a continuous process. All Syrian parties should uphold the Syrian-led, Syrian-owned principle, addressing each other's concerns through extensive political dialogue to effectively promote internal reconciliation and achieve peaceful coexistence at an early date. In this process, the legitimate rights and interests of all ethnicities in Syria must be fully guaranteed, and large-scale violence must never be allowed to recur. Second, we must jointly support the stabilization of the security situation. The complete eradication of terrorist forces entrenched in Syria is a vital prerequisite for restoring peace and stability. For some time now, terrorists within Syria have been rampant, staging frequently terrorist attacks that warrant our high vigilance. This also serves as a reminder that we must maintain a clear understanding of the complexity and severity of the counterterrorism situation in Syria. The international community must resolutely abandon double standards on counterterrorism and oppose a selective approach. We call on the Syrian transitional government to fulfill its international obligations and take all effective measures to firmly combat all international terrorist organizations on the Council's list, including the ETIM. Third, we must jointly support the improvement of the humanitarian situation. Since the onset of the rainy season, heavy rainfall has persisted in northern and northeastern Syria, leading to floods in multiple governorates and exacerbating the humanitarian situation. After years of conflict and turbulence, 15.6 million people across the country are in urgent need of humanitarian assistance, and approximately 1.8 million displaced persons require resettlement. China supports the overarching goal of shifting humanitarian aid towards development assistance. China also supports Syria's integration into the global economic system to restore its own development impetus. We call on the international community to increase humanitarian aid to Syria and make greater efforts to address the most pressing humanitarian needs. President, respecting Syria's sovereignty, independence, unity, and territorial integrity is the fundamental principle that must be upheld in resolving the Syrian issue. Israel's military operations within the separation zone and its attacks on southern Syria violate international law and must stop immediately. The 1974 disengagement agreement must be respected and abided by. Israel should withdraw from the Syrian territory without further delay. China stands ready to work with the international community to play a constructive role in promoting long-term peace and stability in Syria and restoring peace and stability to the Middle East. I thank you, President.
I thank the representative of China for the statement. I shall now make a statement in my capacity as the representative of Bahrain.
Excellencies, I have the honor to welcome Mr. Claudio Cordone, Deputy Special Envoy of the Secretary General for Syria, Mr. Tom Fletcher, Under Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs and Emergency Relief Coordinator, and Ms. Vanessa Fraser, Under Secretary General and Special Representative for Children and Armed Conflict, at today's session. I thank them for the valuable and comprehensive briefings they have provided to the Council. I also welcome the participation of the permanent representatives of Syria, Egypt and Turkey in today's meeting. Excellencies, the Kingdom of Bahrain renews its support for the efforts made by the Syrian Arab Republic to restore its vital role at the Arab and international levels, particularly in the fields of reconstruction and recovery, by embarking on a new phase based on economic openness and sustainable investment. Such efforts support the country's future and achieve development and prosperity for the brotherly Syrian people. The Kingdom also welcomes the continued implementation of the agreement of January 29, 2026, concluded between the Syrian government and the Syrian Democratic Forces. We underscore the importance of this agreement in strengthening Syria's unity and sovereignty, and in consolidating Syria's security and stability. The Kingdom also commends Syria's efforts to enhance the security of its borders, particularly in combating terrorism, drug and weapons trafficking, and confronting organized criminal networks. This reflects Syria's commitment to protecting its national security and contributing to regional stability. The Kingdom also encourages the continuation and intensification of these efforts as they reduce cross-border challenges and enhance security and stability in the region. Excellencies, we welcome the visit of the Undersecretary General for Children and Armed Conflict, Ms. Vanessa Fraser, to Damascus last February. We commend the commitment of the Syrian government to strengthen child protection frameworks and to engage positively with relevant UN entities. This includes efforts to prevent the recruitment of children and to protect children from violations, to expand rehabilitation and reintegration initiatives, and to ensure their access to humanitarian assistance and basic services. We also encourage pursuing these efforts and consolidating them as they contribute to fostering a safe environment for children, safeguarding their rights and dignity, and supporting their long-term recovery, as they constitute an essential pillar for a more stable and prosperous future for the Syrian Arab Republic. In a related context, the Kingdom of Bahrain welcomes the visit of Mr. Tom Fletcher, Under-Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs and Deputy Emergency Relief Coordinator, to Damascus, and the outcomes of that visit. The visit reflected enhanced coordination with national authorities and international partners to support the humanitarian response, including addressing the needs of the displaced persons and improving their living conditions.
The Kingdom reaffirms the importance of protecting civilians, particularly from the dangers of unexploded ordnances and remnants of war. The Kingdom stresses the need to strengthen measures aimed at mitigating these risks, thereby contributing to the creation of a safe environment supportive of recovery. The Kingdom also affirms the need to continue providing international support to the Syrian government and to ease sanctions on Syria to enable it to enhance security and stability and to attract the international investments required for recovery and reconstruction. Excellencies, the Kingdom of Bahrain took note of the report issued by the National Investigation Committee in the Syrian Arab Republic regarding the events in the Suwaida Governorate in July 2025, including its fact-finding and the identification of responsibilities. The Kingdom also took note of the report's emphasis on accountability and the referral of the suspects to the competent judiciary, while stressing the importance of ensuring fair and transparent procedures and continuing investigations. In this regard, we commend the efforts of the Syrian government to strengthen accountability and justice, contributing to national reconciliation, stability, and the consolidation of the rule of law. In conclusion, the Kingdom of Bahrain underscores the need to adhere to the 1974 disengagement agreement and the need for Israel to withdraw from the occupied Syrian territories, including the Golan Heights, in a manner that preserves the sovereignty of the Syrian Arab Republic and its territorial integrity. In this context, we are following with interest the security talks between the Syrian Arab Republic and Israel, and we commend the role of the United States in facilitating these talks, and we express our hope that the talks will lead to de-escalation and to strengthening security and stability in the region. Thank you.
I resume my function as a President of the Council. I now give the floor to the representative of the Syrian Arab Republic.
Thank you, Mr. President. At the outset, I wish to extend my congratulations to you and your team on your effective stewardship of the work of the Council during this month. I also reaffirm Syria's solidarity with the sisterly Kingdom of Bahrain in the face of the Iranian attacks that have targeted it and other brotherly states of the Gulf. I would also like to thank the briefers for their valuable briefings. Mr. President, what unites them all, in addition to being the stars that lead the UN, is that they have all visited Damascus recently and witnessed firsthand the progress being achieved in Syria. It would be remiss not to express my appreciation to all members of the Council for their continued support to Syria as it moves steadily towards becoming a center of stability and development in the region, far from conflict and strife. Mr. President, allow me, before beginning my statement today, to note that we meet in the month of April, a month that carries a heavy legacy in the memory of Syrian men and women. In the same month, Khan Sheikhoun and Douma were subjected to treacherous chemical attacks. This month also witnessed the former regime's horrific massacres against civilians in the Tadaman neighborhood of Damascus and in the city of Homs years ago. Today, as I pledged when I visited them days ago in Syria, and from this podium of the Security Council, I renew the pledge to the memory of the martyrs and to the survivors that we will continue and to defend justice. Justice will prevail, and we will hold all those who have committed grave crimes against the Syrian people accountable. Colleagues, your statements today have commended the state of stability enjoyed by Syria amid ongoing regional escalation. However, what has made Syria today an island of calmness in a turbulent environment? It is the political will that has guided both foreign and domestic policies On the foreign policy front, there has been a genuine will for Syria to serve as a bridge for dialogue rather than a theater of conflict, a center for development and prosperity rather than a hotspot of terrorism and instability. The new Syria has adopted a foreign policy based on openness and cooperation, on good neighborliness and the promotion of shared interests. This has been exemplified in the recent visits of His Excellency the President of the Republic to Berlin and London, as well as in receiving President Volodymyr Zelensky in Damascus. Earlier, there were high-level visits to Paris, Moscow, Beijing, Washington, and other capitals across the region and beyond. As noted by the briefers, efforts continue to strengthen partnership with the United Nations in various domains. Mr. President, domestically, we have achieved a lot during this month. On the security front, first, the final handover of military sites previously occupied by United States forces to Syrian forces has been completed. This followed the successful integration of the Syrian Democratic Forces into national configurations and the government's assumption of its responsibilities in combating terrorism. Second, efforts to combat terrorism and dismantle terrorist cells affiliated with ISIS and Hezbollah continue. This includes the cells that were planning to target a Syrian rabbi in Old Damascus and others operating in Quneitra governorate, aiming to launch attacks from Syrian territory against external targets. Third, Christian communities' Easter celebrations were fully secured. Fourth, the report of the Independent International Commission of Inquiry on the events of Suwaida was welcomed. It clearly reflected the cooperation and transparency of the Syrian government, including granting the Commission unrestricted access. The report called on the international community to continue supporting the government in implementing its recommendations. For its part, the government has reaffirmed its commitment to holding all perpetrators accountable. On the political front, political life has regained momentum, becoming a subject of open discussion and exchange of views on official media. Security forces now protect demonstrators after peaceful protest under the previous regime had been met with death or enforced disappearance. And as you have heard already, preparations are underway for the parliamentary elections in Al-Hasaka governorate. On the development front, the Ministry of Finance has launched for the first time a citizens' version of the 2026 budget. This is a simplified national document that allows public access to expenditure priorities, revenues, and government policies, and they are subject of discussion. Efforts continue pursuant to the available resources and through bilateral and multilateral cooperation to rehabilitate and rebuild schools, hospitals, and health centers alongside the restoration of infrastructure across various regions. Mr. President, I sincerely was hoping, since I became the permanent representative of the new Syria to the United Nations, that my statements before the Council will focus solely on the achievements of Syrian men and women. However, I find myself compelled each time to address subversive practices that we hope will soon come to an end. While Syria, together with regional and international partners, are working to consolidate security and stability in Syria, one party, Israel, continues to pursue its aggressive and expansionist policies. It has adopted 5-year plans to expand settlement activity in the occupied Syrian Golan. It fuels tensions and unrest and escalates its attacks. As if its continuous incursions into southern Syria is not enough, it deliberately targets civilians, abducts Syrian children and civilians, as stated by Mr. Gondoni. It sprays unknown chemical substances on agricultural lands. It also obstructs, halts, inspects, and films ambulances. This occurred 2 days ago. Moreover, it uses Syrian territory it has infiltrated as a launching point for military attacks targeting brotherly Lebanon. Over and above, its leadership continues to promote speculative maps linking Syria to regional axes unrelated to it. In short, it seems that Israel is intent on dragging Syria into the current regional escalation with the aim of undermining all the progress that we have all achieved. Therefore, in the interest of Syria's stability and that of the region, the Security Council must act immediately and seriously to restrain Israel and put an end to its aggressive policies. Colleagues, I truly hope, that I will not have to refer to this obstacle once again. The path towards that end is crystal clear. It requires an adherence to resolutions of international legitimacy and resolutions adopted by your august Council. Syria's diplomatic engagement through the appreciated mediation efforts of the United States must be met with a constructive response in a manner that spares the region further instability. Mr. President, before concluding, I wish to present several requests through which the international community can support the success story being shaped by Syrian men and women at this critical juncture. First, increase humanitarian and development funding, aligning it with national priorities for recovery and reconstruction while strengthening economic and investment partnerships. Second, put an end to Israel's policies of aggression. Third, support national efforts in the path to transitional justice and ensure that no state serves as a haven for perpetrators or criminals. In conclusion, Mr. President, the new Syria has honored its commitments. It has demonstrated by your own testimony that it represents a significant opportunity. It has confronted challenges and difficulties, overcome risks, resolved crises. It has initiated a path towards development and stability and opened the door to opportunities and investment. This is what Syria has achieved. What in turn will the world do? Thank you, Mr. President.
The representative of Syrian Arab Republic for the statement. I now give the floor to the representative of Egypt.
Sayyid Rais.
Mr. President, allow me at the outset to thank you and express our appreciation for your excellent leadership of the Council's work this month. I would like to also thank the briefers for their valuable information and insights. It is my honor to deliver this statement on behalf of the Arab Group. Mr. President, the meeting is convened at a critical moment as Syria continues its transitional phase amid rapidly unfolding regional developments that cast their shadow over the whole situation in the Middle East. In this context, I would like to make the following points. First, the Arab Group stresses the need to safeguard the sovereignty, stability, unity, and territorial integrity of the Syrian Arab Republic. The group firmly rejects all forms of external interferences in Syria's domestic affairs or any practices that would undermine its stability or threaten its security. The group further underscores the importance of continuing and intensifying support efforts and solidarity with Syria in a manner that fulfills the aspirations of the brotherly Syrian people as they move forward toward the future. In this regard, the Arab Group commends the efforts of the Syrian government during the transitional phase that aim at fulfilling the legitimate aspirations of the brotherly Syrian people to achieve security, stability, full sovereignty, as well as the eradication of terrorism, recovery and reconstruction. Second, the Arab Group emphasizes the important role of the United Nations in supporting the efforts of the Syrian government during the transitional phase, and the importance of cooperating with it in all that may contribute to completing the peaceful transitional process as desired. The group urges the international community, the United Nations, and its specialized agencies to provide various forms of support to the Syrian government in a manner that contributes to recovery and reconstruction, in addition to enhancing the capacity of the Syrian state to create appropriate conditions for the voluntary, dignified and sustainable return of refugees. In this context, the group values the pivotal role played by hosting countries that host Syrian refugees, and calls on the international community to strengthen and expand support to those countries which should not bear this responsibility alone. Third, the group renews its support for the efforts of the Syrian government in combating terrorist ISIS organization and terrorism in all its forms, and to intensify cooperation with the international community to confront terrorist threats, eliminate terrorism in all its forms and manifestations, eradicate its sources, and ensure that Syria is not used as a launching point for threats to the security and stability of the region. Fourth, the Arab Group stresses that Syria's unity, stability and security constitute a fundamental pillar for the security and stability of the region. It condemns in the strongest term the aggression and the repeated Israeli attacks on Syrian territory, which represent a blatant violation of the sovereignty of the Syrian Arab Republic, an overt and unacceptable attempt to exploit the delicate circumstances that the country is currently experiencing in order to carry out incursions and fuel internal strife and conflicts. The group also condemns Israel's incursion into the buffer zone and adjacent areas, considering that an occupation and a violation of international law and of the 1974 disengagement agreement between Syria and Israel. The group calls upon the Security Council to assume its responsibilities in halting these continued attacks and violations, and to compel Israel to respect international law, withdraw immediately from all Syrian territories it occupies, including the entirety of the occupied Syrian Golan, and to implement all relevant Security Council resolutions. Mr. President, in conclusion, the Arab Group reaffirms its commitment to stand by Syria and its brotherly people in their journey toward building a secure, stable and prosperous state founded on the principles of justice, equality and the rule of law, and ensures the protection of the rights of all Syrians without exception. Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the representative of Egypt for the statement. I now give the floor to the representative of Turkey.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also thank U.S. Chief Fletcher, U.S. Chief Frazier, and Deputy Special Envoy Mr. Cordon for their comprehensive briefings. Mr. President, as our region goes through a difficult period, peace and stability require close and sustained coordination among all stakeholders. This is precisely what we pursue in the Syrian context. Efforts to shield Syria from the wider cycle of regional violence have so far been largely effective. In this regard, we highly commend the Syrian government for its efforts to keep the country away from regional escalation. These efforts deserve the recognition and the full support of the international community, in particular this Council. Following the recent ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon, it is essential that Israel also refrains from escalatory actions in Syria and rolls back its encroachment. Stability in southern Syria must be ensured in full compliance with the 1974 Disengagement of Forces Agreement. We reiterate our call for Israel's withdrawal from the buffer zone and from the areas it has occupied since 8 December. Respect for Syria's sovereignty, independence and unity, and territorial integrity remains indispensable. Concerning the crisis in Lebanon, allow me also to underline our appreciation for the efforts of the UNHCR, OCHA, WFP and other UN agencies, as well as their humanitarian partners on the ground since the beginning of the Israeli attacks. Their work to alleviate the suffering of Syrians and Lebanese in Lebanon and of the hundreds of thousands who have crossed into Syria since the onset of these attacks is vital. In the face of this serious test, UN agencies should continue to provide the necessary support to the Syrian government. Mr. President, Syria's path towards stability, security and economic recovery must not be jeopardized. The focus should be on the swift and uninterrupted implementation of the integration agreement, further steps toward an inclusive political process, and advancement of full reconstruction. Despite certain challenges, implementation of the integration agreement is moving forward. The next step should be the dissolution of the so-called SDF and its affiliated structures. No military build-up or rhetoric targeting neighboring countries should have a place in New Syria. We will continue to closely follow implementation of the agreement from the perspective of our national security concerns and our unwavering support for Syria's unity and territorial integrity. At the same time, bringing together all segments of Syrian society under an inclusive approach remains a key priority. Convening of the People's Assembly in the coming weeks, as announced by the Syrian authorities, could mark an important milestone in the political process. It may also pave the way for rapid progress, including through necessary updates to the legislative framework. It goes without saying that the threat posed by Daesh must continue to be closely monitored. Syrian government, as the primary counterpart of the international community in countering this threat, should be supported in strengthening its counter-terrorism capacity. Mr. President, Turkey will remain a committed partner to Syria in its pursuit of stability, security, reconciliation, and sustainable economic recovery. I thank you again.
I thank the representative of Turkey for the statement. There are no more names inscribed on the list of speakers. The meeting is adjourned.
That was a live session of the UN Security Council over the latest developments in the Middle East region, notably the situation in Syria, as the Syrian representative at the UNSC asserted that Syria welcomes the international intervention that prevents more escalation and ends conflict in its territories. He added that a safe political transition needs coordination between Syrian government and the Security Council. He further illustrated the significance of Syrian women's active role in the political process and also pointed out to the conditions of children in Syria whom are in shortage of education, health and basic needs.